2024 was a great year for gaming. Games like Stellar Blade, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and many others made it more memorable for PlayStation 5 users. So today we'll be looking into some of these PlayStation 5 games from 2024 that you need to play if you haven't. Without further ado, let's get started. At number 14, we have Rise of Ronin. The open-world samurai game is kind of like Ghost of Tsushima. It's made by Team Ninja, the team behind the popular series Nioh. While many people would know that Nioh games are meant to be for the very hardcore gamers who love insane difficulties for their game, but Rise of Ronin does things a little differently. They made it so that the game is more accessible for even newer players, and there are a lot of things to do as you wander around the great world as a Ronin. I admit that the graphics are not that good, and it was one of the main reasons why people were not very fond of the game, but aside from that, the game is actually really fun. It is set in Yokohama, Edo, and Kyoto during the final stretch of the Edo period. The story follows the Blade twins, whose genders are selected by the player, and their involvement in the Veiled Edge resistance group after their family was murdered by Oniwaban working for the shogunate. At 13, we have Tekken 8, the first fighting game on the list. We can't deny that this was a great game. I'm not much of a fan of fighting games, but even I can see that Tekken 8 was a great one. It came out in January 2024 and it stuck around for the whole year, which is rare in this genre. Every fighting game, if it's good, makes some waves like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, but Tekken 8 with some clever updates, changes, and addition of good characters made it stick around for the year. There were some good games in the genre last year like the aforementioned ones, but Tekken 8 was the one that I went for in this list because of many different reasons. Street Fighter, however, was a close second because it was, I think, the first game that made the controls for these kinds of games easier for newer players, which made it more accessible to newbie players like me to get into the game. However, like I said, Tekken 8 was the most fun out of all of those, and so it gets the spot on the list. At number 12, we have Prince of Persia: Lost Crown. I was happy to finally get a new Prince of Persia game after so long. I love playing as the prince, fighting to save his land and parkouring around and defeating enemies. But this one is a little different in that this is a 2.5D platformer. The combat style and the platforming is very smooth, and the story is good too. You play as the new hero named Sargon, a young member of a warrior clan named the Immortals. He travels to the cursed city of Mount Kaf to rescue the kidnapped prince, Kasan. There are many good puzzles and hidden areas in the game, many different abilities, and lots of different mechanics that makes it a unique in the genre. It's unfortunate that this game was not a commercial success, so Ubisoft won't make a sequel. However, it seemed like this was one of their best games from the last few years. At number 11, we have Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, another fighting game which made lots of impact in the genre. People were waiting for another game in the Budokai Tenkaichi series, and when Bandai Namco finally announced the release of this game, people were really excited. And this game lived up to its hype. With so many different heroes from the popular anime and such a unique fighting style, this game made me waste so many hours playing it. Like I said, I'm not much of a fan of fighting game, but this game was an exception to that. Don't get me wrong, I'm bad at this game too, but I had fun playing it anyway. The vibrant colors they used for abilities and power-up animations looks really nice. Also, the character designs look super cool too. The fighting is smooth and responsive, which I believe is very important in these types of games. Fun fact, this game had more people buying the $100 versions of the game to get the early access than the number of copies who bought the early access version of Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which is just insane. At number 10, we have Helldivers 2. There is a reason why this game was at one point the most popular game of 2024. It had all the good qualities that this type of game should have. Developed by Arrowhead, this game takes place in the 22nd century and follows the journey of the Helldivers, an elite force of shock troops dispatched to combat various threats to humanity. It's a co-op third-person shooter game which I can tell for sure will make you lose hundreds of hours in. There are some controversies with this game, but I won't get into that. There are way too many videos that cover this topic extensively already. When this game came out, people were saying this is how gaming should be. They were giving the example of this game everywhere. If a studio made a bad decision, people said be more like Helldivers. That's how popular this game was. But unfortunately, because of the controversy, the fame of this game died out. But the devs are still putting out patches, updates, and still keeping the game alive for the thousands of players that still play the game. At number 9, we have Dragon's Dogma 2. Now I know that this game had its fair share of controversies as well, but we are not here to talk about those. The players who played this game would actually say that this is a great one. This RPG sets itself apart by incorporating some of the best mechanics in the game. The random encounters, the massive open world, the various different companions and skill combos. There is so much to do in this game. While it is shorter than the first game, the gameplay overall is improved significantly. The graphics of this game are something else. It will work your graphics card over time if you crank it up. You take on the role of a character named the Arisen, a hero marked by a dragon whom they must defeat. The character creator system is a good one too because you can download that separately. And then there is the pawn creator system as well. You can create a pawn which can cover you from behind or make someone who would serve as the frontliner. If you want a good gameplay experience and don't mind the controversy, this game would be a great choice. At number 8, we have Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. I have said this in multiple of my videos that Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is a great game. No nonsense, just pure fun gameplay. The hordes of enemies that come at you and the satisfaction you get when you defeat those said enemies is just out of this world. With the capabilities of the current gen hardware, the studio was able to generate thousands of enemies at the same time, which looks super cool, especially when you know you will need to defeat every one of them in order to progress. The game looks very good as well. If you'll take a look around, you would notice that they did not cheap out on the graphics, which is really easy to do in these types of games. Also, Henry Cavill is making a movie or a TV series based on this game, so that will be awesome as well. Nothing else to say there really. I highly recommend playing this game if you haven't tried it yet. At 7, we have Silent Hill 2 Remake. While I don't really like remakes, this one hits differently. And that's mainly because of the changes the studio made for the combat mechanics. The original game was a gem and one of my favorite games in the genre, but I didn't enjoy the combat system. You can run circle around the enemies and they won't be able to touch you. This game refined those flaws and made it so much more enjoyable. Another thing I liked about this remake was that they reduced the density of the fog. Now you can see something instead of a white background like in the original. Other than that, the game is pretty much the same. I love the story, the graphics are awesome, the jump scares and the characters are great. This is one of the few horror games that I would play multiple times and not get bored of it, which is saying something. You play as James Sunderland, who gets a letter from his dead wife. In that letter, she tells him to come to find her in Silent Hill. There are multiple endings and some of them are really bizarre and crazy. You should definitely check this one out. At number 6, we have Stellar Blade. This is one of the games that I thought would be fun because of, the reasons. But it actually turned out to be a fun experience. The combat, the environment, and the gameplay all turned out to be very good. The graphics were one of the best I've ever seen. While you play mostly in the plain desert biomes, the cyborg-looking enemies you fight look great. The Souls-like combat style combined with hack and slash elements makes this game exciting. I thought the studio made this game as a low-quality fan service type game, but instead, they surprised me a lot. The game takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where humanity has been forced to abandon Earth after losing a war against monstrous creatures. In an effort to reclaim their home, Eve and her squad are deployed from the colony to fight the enemies and retake Earth. The main focus of this game was Eve, and we can see how much effort they put into the character by just looking at her clothes, her hair, and all the other elements throughout the game. Give this one a try if you haven't. I'm sure it will surprise you as well. At number 5, we have Indiana Jones The Great Circle. We have entered the top 5 tier now. Indiana Jones The Great Circle definitely deserves the spot. Let's first talk about the graphics of this game. It looks gorgeous. Right from the first scene where they are in a forest, it looked amazing. They also recreated 1900s Egypt, which was amazing as well. I had a lot of questions about the choices they made before playing the game. One of them was, why did they make this game a first-person game? They could have gone the safe route and made a third-person shooter like all the other games, but after playing it, I realized how different the experience was playing it in the first-person mode. Yeah, the combat seems a little wonky at times, but that just makes the game more unique for me. The story is good and the gameplay was great. It made me fall in love with Indiana Jones series once again. The last few movies and games did spoil the name a bit, but with this one they regained their status. A very fun game indeed. At number 4, we have Astrobot, the Sony Game of the Year winner for 2024. As much as people hate it for winning the award, it was still a very good game, just not as good as few of the other ones on the list. While playing this game, I felt like the PS5 was made for this game and not the other way around. The smooth gameplay and great combat and platforming mechanics look amazing. The bright colors and effects brings up the visuals for the game. People don't really talk about the graphics for this one, but it's very good as well. The artistic choices they made for the character designs were great. PlayStation did a good job making this game its own standalone one, so now they can focus more on developing it and not make it a second thought for PlayStation gamers. It's however a small game with only 11 hours of gameplay on average, but if the sales numbers impress the higher ups of Sony, they might make it a good series of games with many hours of gameplay. At number 3, we have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I feel like it's a given now that the Final Fantasy games are just good. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was the latest in the trilogy of remakes for the original 1997 games. It follows the story of Final Fantasy VII Remake. The game was nominated for the Game of the Year because it was so good. The graphics looks phenomenal, the gameplay is even better. Set immediately after Remake's events, the player controls mercenary Cloud Strife and a party of characters principally comprising of the eco-terrorist group Avalanche, who embarks on a journey across the planet to prevent the mega corporation Shinra from exploiting its life essence and defeat the former elite soldier Sephiroth, who seeks to unite the planet to achieve greater power. The combat also felt nice, which is a given really at this point. Like its predecessor, the gameplay of Rebirth combines real-time action with strategic and role-playing elements. Definitely one of the better games last year. At number 2, we have Metaphor ReFantazio. Metaphor was not really on my radar last year, but when it became one of the best rated games, I had to play it, and I was glad I did it. It was an amazing experience. The story was dark and had so many political elements. It was great to say the least. Not many games nowadays focus on the dark storytelling style. Many of them have a giant powerful boss and a protagonist that levels up his strength to defeat it. Metaphor ReFantazio is set in a United Kingdom of Uchronia, a medieval fantasy realm mirroring the real world. It takes place after the assassination of its former king. Years earlier, an assassination attempt on the prince resulted in him being cursed and falling into a long slumber. The protagonist, Will, an orphan boy of the magic-wielding Elda tribe and the prince's childhood friend, participates in the royal tournament held to decide the throne's successor, journeying across Uchronia to rally support from its people while searching for a way to lift the curse. The graphics was definitely one of the points which put me off when this game was announced, but when I played the game, it grew on me. The design choice is unique and now I quite like it. At number 1, we have Black Myth Wukong. I mean, this was my personal game of the year last year, and it had to top the list as best PS5 game as well. The original trailer for this game was shown way back in 2020 for generating interest for investors. The game looked so good back then that many people thought it was a scam. Many years later, people were amazed at how good this game looked. But looks are not the only good thing about this game. The gameplay was out of this world. Even the story was good. The Journey of the Monkey King, where we get to fight most of his enemies from the Journey to the West book. All the bosses were from the novel, who were amped up by receiving one of the body parts of Wukong. The combat was one of my favorite parts of the game. Even though the devs do not like it when it's compared to Souls-like games, there are so many similarities that I can't deny it. The boss fights were the main focus of the game, and that's why people did feel like it was a boss rush game. It's also a relatively smaller game, but a wonderful one at that. So these were the best PS5 games of 2024, and 2025 should be even better with so many games set to release this year. And if GTA 6 is really set to release on consoles only, then we know what game would top this list next year. As for games already released, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is already becoming one of the best games ever. People are even saying that this could beat GTA 6 for Game of the Year. Well, only time could tell. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like and subscribe button. Also, if you want to know why Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is so popular, I have a video right here. You can watch that one. See you in the next one.